Now, moped riders deliberately crashing into vehicles for fake insurance claims have increased fourfold in the past year. So 4,000 people have fallen victim to the crash for cash scams. I don't know if you've ever been on the receiving end of one of those. There's quite a lot of YouTube footage of clearly examples where the person on the moped or whatever didn't get away with it because they were clearly filmed and realised they'd be rumbled. But it's fascinating. Investigations by the Insurance Fraud Bureau are taking place at the City of London Police. Let's speak to Shelley Comb, Intelligence and Investigations Manager at the Insurance Fraud Bureau. Afternoon to you, Shelley.
Good afternoon, Ian. Thanks for having me.
It's nice to have you with us. We can all laugh and giggle when you look at some of those YouTube videos of where it didn't work out for the scammer, because you can almost see the moment when they go, oh, God, he's got a dash cam, and they leg it round the corner with their, probably stolen moped. But, of course, we're talking about people where that didn't happen, and there is an increase in these kind of claims.
Yeah, that's exactly right. So we've definitely seen at the Insurance Fraud Bureau a rise in cash for crash in the London area. So as you pointed out, over the last 3 years, 4,000 claims have been identified, which are specific to the moped cash for crash scams in the London area. And it's quite widespread across London as well, but we have seen a particular surge in Croydon and South West London.
Interesting.
And to put it into perspective, the value of this is around 70 million over the past 3 years alone. Wow. And that's specific to these particular cash for crash scams. So it's a very, very big problem, and we want people to be aware of it.
Yeah, absolutely. It's very difficult. I know when we've done phone-ins on this before, when somebody has been not necessarily with a moped, but they've been sitting in their car, and then the car in front has just sort of reversed into them just slightly, and then 3 people have jumped out grabbing their necks going, I'm dying, and of course it's a whiplash claim, and and the person in the car is thinking, well, nothing happened, you literally touched my bumper. But what has then happened is some people have thought, oh my God, the insurance company have paid out. They've paid out on this. Well, why would they do that when clearly something terrible has happened here? Do insurance companies err on the side of caution? I mean, it must be hard to investigate fully every single claim of something bad going on. What's the deal there?
Well, I would say absolutely not the case in terms of erring on the side of caution and paying out on every case. So the insurers are really committed and work tirelessly in collaboration with us and the City of London Police to try and not just identify when these cases have taken place, but to bring the offenders to prosecution. We work really, really hard to try and get them to a criminal conviction and prison time, but also we take other steps like putting them on the insurance fraud register to make it harder for them to get insurance and other financial products in the future. So there's a lot of deterrence in place. We also work tirelessly to actually prevent it though. So before the fact, raise awareness of what's going on, try and help people spot the signs of what's happening and educate them as to what to do in those circumstances if they do unfortunately fall victim to it.
Because I would imagine the scammers have got better at kind of faking the accident, as it were. I imagine there's a certain choreography that goes with that, rather than, just obviously pranging into somebody, ways of doing it that perhaps makes the driver question themselves.
Yeah, absolutely. So they're very, very sophisticated, and we see this with scammers changing up their tactics, and we're trying to be one step ahead and really on top of it. So some of the things that we have seen is not just the, what could be quite funny and feigning the very dramatic injury and throwing themselves and the mopeds on the floor and things like that. But you might see them loitering around, waiting for them to pass, maybe using a vehicle to obscure the view as well. Yeah. There might be somebody else, a pedestrian who is just very conveniently there, that's actually complicit in it to act as a witness, flashing you out of a junction, as you mentioned. So there's lots of different ways in which they're going to try and scam you out of your money. Yeah. We really want everyone to be aware of it and to spot it and to be vigilant to it. Because, it might look funny, but it's not funny to those people that have obviously been involved in it. And it carries a real risk as well, not just the financial risk, but there's a real danger.
So everyone is after the bad guys. And what's interesting is that the figures we're talking about here are just the London area. This is a national thing as well. So if you multiply that across the whole country, we've got a complete organised crime thing going on here in tens of thousands, probably.
I mean, what we would say is that there are absolutely links to organised crime in this field. We've seen the most recent surges in Croydon and South West London, quite concentrated in those areas. But as we've said, the scammers are very sophisticated. They're going to do what they can to avoid detection.
Yeah.
And this could be widespread, and we want to encourage people to report it. So the more we know that happens, the more we can address it. And then when these other hotspots take place, we can go and take some action in that area. So using our cheat line service and Crime Stoppers, not just if you've been maybe a victim of it, but also maybe if you've witnessed it.
Yeah, true.
Call up, report it to us, and let us do everything that we can, because this affects everybody. It affects everyone who takes out insurance, not just the victims.
Yeah.
So we want to do everything we can.
Spot on. Listen, Shelley, thank you for your time. Really appreciate that. Shelley Comb, Intelligence and Investigations Manager at the Insurance Fraud Bureau. Let's get a word from Peter Kirkham, former Met police officer, on this. Peter, I mean, this is a growing kind of crime, because for those criminals that get it right and know how to do it, it's quite an easy thing, it seems, to carry this off quite simply and walk away trousering a few grand in the process.
It is relatively simple. If you've got I think you used the phrase choreography sorted out earlier on,
Yeah.
And you've got that off pat, and everyone plays their role well. If you've got a witness that's part of it, then that gives you the upper hand against an innocent motorist who's on their own.
Sure.
Even if they've got a camera, that camera's only going to show a certain field of vision. And so there's quite a lot of things that might happen outside that field of vision. So although the camera might not lie, it certainly doesn't tell the whole story. So anybody that's got arrangements in place that they've got this apparently independent witness is going to put themselves ahead, certainly as far as most insurance companies are concerned, because if it's one word against the other, they'll tend to err on the side of paying out. And if it's two against one, they're almost guaranteed to be paying out, unless they've got really good grounds to suspect fraud.
Indeed, and that's the problem, isn't it? I mean, I appreciate our last contributor and others are doing their best on this one, but we know what I think most people have either been themselves or know somebody who's been in not a scam situation, but an insurance situation where 100% they weren't to blame, but it ended up as a 50-50 thing. And you think, how did that work? Well, it seemed, because for the insurance companies, that seemed to be the easiest way to get a solution on this.
Yes, I've been there myself a number of times. I tend to be fairly robust with insurance companies and really push them if they're thinking of making it 50-50. I was told by someone in the industry that they like 50-50 because that way they get to put everybody's premiums up, not just one party.
Absolutely.
And so there's gains for them, and they have these algorithms about the price of your insurance that are known only to 3 people in the world or something, and how they work, heaven only knows. But they always seem to go ridiculously up in the air, even if it's not your fault.
How does that work, by the way? We've all wondered that. It's like, hang on a second, no,
I have no idea.
I got paid out. I got the money to fix my car because it wasn't my fault, but my new premium looks like it was my fault because it's just gone up 390 quid.
They've got all the cards stacked in their favour, in that they can assess the cost of an insurance policy as they wish, and they'll use whatever factors they choose to throw into that mix. Because we don't know what they are, we can't effectively challenge them. But it's a bit of a nightmare. There's also the accident management companies involved now, who add huge amounts of cost in terms of storage of vehicles and this and that and temporary vehicles, and you get the hard sell sometimes. Do you want a temporary vehicle? No, I don't. I'm all right. Just get on with fixing mine.
That's right.
And, they seem to be adding up more and more and more cost if they think they'll be able to reclaim it from the other party. So it's an industry that's not exactly whiter than white to start with.
True.
But these frauds are a different thing entirely.
Indeed. Peter, thank you. Peter Kirkham, former Met police officer. I'm bound to throw in on the back of that, if you've been involved yourself in one of those where some dodgy half-wit on a moped, well, even in a car for that matter. I mean, this story happens to be about moped crime, because I would imagine for the scammers, it's just the easiest way to do it, to find yourself in between a couple of cars, move in front of one, whack your brakes on, nudge into one, claim they nudged into you. It may work, it might not work, but if it does, there's a nice 2K ka-ching right into your pocket. You know, your mate does it round the corner, another mate does it round the corner. You get, you know, half a dozen of those going a week. That's not a bad little income, is it? Even if you don't get away with half of them, the other half you've done rather well. You know, there's a good few grand that you can bank as a result of scamming somebody. And sometimes it's to the point where the car driver is forced to sort of, well, was it my fault? I don't know, all happened so quickly. I have no idea. But then there's the overt stuff where it's pretty obvious. In fact, the example I remember somebody phoning us here on Talk, it was a couple of years ago, was literally the case when you're coming off a motorway, you're in the slip road, you've come off, and there's traffic to get onto the next roundabout, you know, the kind of thing. And a car in front just reversed into so the car in front reversed, and then suddenly about 6 people jumped out the car, all of them simultaneously, in like a kind of failed audition tape for RADA, every one of them holding their neck, screaming like they'd just been partially decapitated. And the guy in the car was like, what the hell's all this about? Didn't even think it was anything to do with him. And then suddenly the guy, you've banged into us, look what you've done. And apparently there was a payout of this. They all got a bit of a payout, because they were all badly injured in this terrible whiplash horror story, and nothing had happened, and he couldn't control it. He was saying to his insurance company, no, you must not pay these people out, this is clearly a scam, and they didn't really want to know. That's certainly how he told the story. Now, I don't know how common that sounds like, you know, a kind of rather dramatic example of it, but I'm sure there are cases where you found yourself having to argue with your own insurance company not to pay someone out who was clearly having it off royally with their money, or ultimately your money, because your premium then goes up. I thought the other point that Peter... I mean, we should do a whole show on insurance. How my house insurance just gone up by 100 quid. Why? Why has it done that? It was like 200. Now it's like 300. It's like a third. It's like, what? A third? Any reason? No, not really. OK, so you put it up like above any inflationary kind of comparison, and there's no reason. Well, you know, there's like an algorithm thing. Well, tell me more about the algorithm. Well, we don't have access to the algorithm. Who does have access to who is it, the United Nations? Boutros Ghali? Who the hell does have access to this magic formula that hikes up my premium on the car, on the house insurance, on anything else you want to insure for that matter? That's another racket in itself. But if you've been on the crash for cash receiving end, the business end of one of those, be it a moped or a car, all ears at this end, 0344 499 1000.